Hello, I'm Ken Gang.
And I'm Sarah Santos.
And welcome to Crash Course Story Corner. Crash Course Story Corner.
Today we're going through the history of the Seattle International District, a history filled with culture and community as well as oppression and struggle.
You may be asking why we're going over this history. Well, tell them, Sarah.
This year's film night is on...
Miss Santos, Mr. Sukgang, me. What now, Parallel Universe Kent? Sorry, but what is film night?
Well, let me tell ya, film night is a... Is it a love story?
Maybe. Is it a documentary?
Kinda? Is it an anime? No.
Is there a dramatic interpretation of events important to the Filipino community?
Hell yeah!
Film Night is short for Filipino Night. It's hosted by the Filipino American Student Association. It's a dope-ass cultural show where we get to show off our culture and really show what we're made of.
Filipino Night is traditionally a play in which we touch upon certain topics that really mean a lot to the Filipino community. Filipinos and Filipino Americans go through collective struggles shared amongst the community, like being part of a military family, not being Filipino enough but not being American enough either, expectations of higher education like everyone expecting that you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer.
But Filipino Night is also a night of celebration. We'll be having spoken word performances from John Eckloff, performances from Sayao and Legacy, but best of all, food.
Yeah, if you're having brown struggles, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but bad food ain't one.
So, this year's Filipino Night focuses on the International District and the Gang of Four. But in order to understand the impact of the Gang of Four on the International District, we need to understand what the International District is. Today, the International District is a cultural hub of all of these different kinds of Asian American communities. But back then, the International District used to be nothing but a muddy wasteland in the middle of Seattle. But as a result of the 1910s regrading and the different ways of immigration, it is what it is today. So, why does the International District matter? Well, this country has a history of Asian American community suppression. And examples of these can include the relocation of Japanese Americans after the attack on Pearl Harbor, or even the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, where a whole ethnic minority was excluded from entering the United States. But despite all this, the International District has been resilient, has persisted, and is thriving today. One movement I want to touch on is the Asian American movement. It was a movement started by students radicalized by the anti-Vietnam War movement, and they sought to end racist hiring practices, demeaning media stereotypes, residential discrimination, and gentrification. And imagine all this as a background to our performance. The Kingdom Protest and the HUD March and the Gang of Four. Sarah?
So, the Gang of Four was comprised of 4 people from different ethnic backgrounds: African American, Latinx, Native American, and Asian American. United by their struggles, they banded together to fight for the rights of their communities. They focused mainly on Seattle, but the efforts of their work were felt throughout Washington and the whole Pacific Northwest. The majority of their work was done in the late 1960s to the 1980s. Bob Santos, the subject of this year's Filipino Night. He's not related to me, by the way, just in case you were wondering. He grew up in the International District and became involved in the civil rights movement through involvement with the Catholic Church in the 1960s. He served as the executive director for the International District Improvement Association from 1972 to 1989, where he helped increase affordable housing, preserve cultural small businesses, and provide culturally appropriate social services for the ID. He mentored a generation of young Asian American leaders who affectionately called him Uncle Bob. Until the end, he was a tireless advocate for the Filipino and Asian American communities. What did they do? Well, they banded together to fight against city, country, and state power brokers. They fought against development, poverty, and gentrification. They undid institutional racism, and they stood for diversity and equity. And why were they important? Well, back in those days, the city officials tried to pit minorities against each other, figuring that if everyone was fighting each other, they wouldn't see the bigger injustices happening. But the Gang of Four stood against that. They figured out that working together provided greater results than working apart. And they fought for racial and economic justice for all.
The things that Uncle Bob and the rest of the Gang of Four fought against are still in the world today.
Problems such as gentrification and racism are still prevalent not only in the International District, but around the country.
In the Seattle International District in particular, wealthy businessmen are proposing to build a new high-rise on the corner of 8th and Lane. This new high-rise would include hotel rooms, condos, and apartments.
The concern is that this new high-rise would disrupt the lives of the residents of this historical neighborhood, eventually pushing them out of the International District.
Now it's up to us to take action.
Like Uncle Bob in the Gang of Four, we too can take action, make our voices heard, and say that we want humbaos, not hotels. So now that you've learned about all this, come to Filipino Night to learn more. This year, Filipino Night will be on Saturday, May 20th. Doors open at 5 p.m. and the show starts at 6 p.m.
Come early so you can check out a super cool historical exhibit created by yours truly and my exhibit committee.
Be there or be square. Also, check out our website, which I designed, for more details.
To get there, click on my face. Click here to delete the internet. No, please don't. Don't do it. Click it. You know you want to.